Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the club seminar. Just while we're waiting for people to join, if you are able to add to your name your name on Zoom, which club you're from, that's just useful for us and for everyone to see. You can probably do that by hovering over the picture of yourself, and where you see three dots in the top right, click on that and choose rename at the bottom. At least that's how it looks for me. So if you're able to do that, great, but no worries if not. So thank you for joining this seminar. I think this is a very important topic for obviously for the health of bridge clubs. We are always wanting to teach the game to new people and to bring them into playing in the club. And obviously teaching them and keeping them interested is obviously one challenge, but then the next challenge is how to bring those people who have learnt and get them comfortable playing in a club situation and get them coming along to club duplicates, so the club can benefit and grow from these new people who have taken up our great game. So we've got three people who have kindly agreed to present what they've done at their clubs, which has been successful. So hopefully that will be useful, and then we can have some Q&A and general discussion. I did just want to mention before we started that we do have the transition course materials, which was a short course which was originally created by eBed, and then it's been adapted a little bit by the EBU, which is available. And this was materials that were put together. It was put together as we were coming out of COVID, as sort of an introduction to duplicate bridge for people who are either new to the game or who have only played sort of casual bridge or rubber bridge in the past. So I will just briefly share the slides so that you can see what I'm talking about. 1 second while I switch. So yeah, so it's just explaining duplicate bridge. So you can see that we start by pointing out it's not so different, what it looks like at the table, what the boards look like, explaining about vulnerability, cards, bidding boxes, how the lead works and dummy during play, etc., and so on. But it is quite useful just to introduce people to what it's going to be like when they are playing at the table. It's just potentially some useful materials for introducing players who haven't experienced duplicate bridge and give them some idea of what to expect before they actually go and do it. Brian has raised his hand. Brian.
Right. What do you call this material and where could I find it?
Excellent. Yes, it's called the transition course, and I'll put the link in the chat, and we'll also include it in when we announce that the recording of this seminar is available. We'll include that link in with that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Right, so I'll stop sharing, and I think we will move on to our first case study. So this is Northallerton Bridge Club, which is in Yorkshire, and Steve Wilson is kindly going to speak to us about this. So I will hand over to Steve.
Okay, so morning everyone. Thanks, Jonathan, for inviting me to speak. And as he said in the introduction, we're a small club in Northallerton, North Yorkshire, our county town. It's a very rural area, and we're a small club playing once a week. And at the start of this year, we had 33 members, and like a lot of small rural clubs, the numbers were dropping. We decided a couple of years ago we needed to change the profile of the club. We affiliated to the EBU in 2022, and as part of our sort of drive to increase the profile, we decided we'd do some bridge lessons. And three main reasons for doing that. Number one, recruit new members, promote the bridge generally as a great game that we all enjoy, and have some fun doing it. Before we started, we received a lot of support. We watched some EBU seminars on teaching, recruitment, and we got some assistance from EBED and also Yorkshire Contract Bridge Association. David Gill there had several Zoom calls with us and advised us that we target the about to and newly retired. And David has a lot of experience of teaching face-to-face online, and we got some invaluable advice from him before we started. They also sponsor a 30-week face-to-face and online teaching program called Bridge Play, which we were very grateful to be able to follow, because it meant that we didn't actually have to write or learn a teaching program ourselves. We were able to follow a set program. Jonathan was great as well. He gave us personal advice. He's been to our club and been very helpful. And we also got financial support from three sources: the EBU, EBED, and YCBA for capital items and room hire costs. We're a small club. We don't have a lot of resources, and it was really helpful to get some of the setup costs covered. But top of the list in support by a long way was our club members, and getting them on board and helping was, I think, absolutely crucial to the success that we had. So what do we need at the outset? Myself and our chairman, Mick Hayworth, led the classes, but we also knew that the two of us couldn't do everything ourselves, and we needed some extra tutors from within our membership. And 14 people, in addition to the two of us, volunteered, which was about half the club. And that was a massive benefit for us. And some surprising people volunteered, some relatively inexperienced players, some people we didn't have down as good communicators. And these people actually proved to be excellent tutors. So we didn't judge a book by the cover. We asked everyone would they like to come and help. And the response from the club members, who in truth realised we needed to do some recruitment, was very positive and really helpful for us all. We also knew we had to have very clear communication throughout. David Guild advised us of this list of things here that we needed to have. Friendliness, that goes without saying. I think we've all heard stories of people who've done some classes, gone to a club, and then being put off straight away by a poor reception in the club, or someone being impatient or critical. So friendly, patient, sometimes very patient, play at a slow pace. We're all used to playing in a club session duplicate pace or tournament pace, and new starters find that very difficult. So we had to slow right down. And we're nearly a year since we started. I still find that difficult. I'm wanting to move things on at a quicker pace, but so playing slowly was, I think, key. Coffee break was important. People want the social side. They wanted to meet new people and have a chat, and playing during the day. Our club session is on a Monday night, and a lot of people don't want to drive at night. A lot of our players live in a very rural area, might have a 5-10 mile drive at night down country lanes, and we would rather play in the daytime. So we decided we'd run with daytime play. I think this has the drawback that people who are at work can't attend, but we had to start somewhere. And we also learned that we need to get cards in the students' hands as soon as we possibly can, and have commitment from everyone. I learned that the national trend for uptake to club membership is pretty poor, but I also heard that some clubs had got 100% of their students into club membership and playing duplicate. So our rationale was that if other clubs can do it, I'm sure we can. So we chose a separate venue. there's a new build, Scout and Guide headquarters, and it was all of these things: airy, clean, warm, great accessibility, great parking, toilets, kitchen, ideal venue. And to recruit, we mobilised our membership and mainly promoted by word of mouth. We produced a laminated poster, which we put widely around town, and I emailed to assorted organisations: Rotary, U3A, Trefoil Guild, WI, and most people were very helpful in sending that poster out to their membership. We put in some free newspaper notices in our local paper. We didn't use social media very much. My daughter did set up a Facebook page, but only around 3% of social media users are 60 plus. Facebook, it's about 6%, but TikTok and Instagram, much less. So whilst we did have a small social media presence, that wasn't our main drive for recruitment, and word of mouth was top of the list. So we produced a very clear, simple poster. I like sans serif typeface, not much coloured, really clear, simple. This is what we're offering. We also made it clear there was going to be a fee, but we would do a free taster session, and there was a limit to the number of places, and a personal email address was required. Some degree of computer literacy was necessary to follow the course. So to recruit, I spoke personally to every potential student, and this was actually quite time consuming. I could spend easily 30, 40 minutes on the phone to people who rang up and showed interest. And we recruited 14 people. And as you can see on the slide, I tried to establish if they had any level of bridge knowledge and what they were expecting, and tried to be really clear about what we were doing on the course, what our aims were. And we ran 2 free taster sessions, which were actually lesson 1 of the programme. And a number of people came to those. They were able to play some mini bridge, got the cards in their hands within half an hour. Everyone who came to the taster session signed up for the classes. And we also confirmed there would be a charge. And we made them pay £50 up front for the first 10 lessons rather than pay weekly. So there was a level of commitment, financial, to come and attend. But no one complained about that sort of level of fee. We thought that was good value for money. So this is how we ran the courses. I sent out an email confirming the subject and any admin matters. We made sure we started on time every week, and did a brief introduction with a chance for students to feed back to us and ask us any bridge or admin questions. And we had name badges for everyone because we had so many people from the club coming. I set up a rota. We normally had 3 tutors, plus myself and Mick, who were leading every week. So there'd be 5 of us, and those personnel changed. So it was really helpful. I think that it was more personal, that the students knew who they were talking to, and we knew all the students' names from the start. And the tutors would feed back to us areas that we needed to reinforce or maybe hadn't been made clear. The Bridge Play programme is about a 30-minute video each week, and we paused that to discuss issues that came up, or if a student asked a question, we'd stop and go off at a bit of a tangent, and then play 10 prepared hands with a coffee break. And we were counselled at the start, make sure the biscuits are good and decent coffee. And again, in block letters, friendly tutoring from everyone throughout. And the students got to know all 14 tutors straight away and before they came to the club. After each lesson, I sent a debrief email, and there were PDFs with hand commentaries, quizzes, lesson summaries, which were all resourced from the Bridge Play programme. So we didn't have to write any of those. But I sent out a personal email, just a follow-up and a debrief from each class, anything that had been picked up, any questions that were asked, tried to answer those. So I have a very personal touch, a personal approach. And this is the classroom that we used. There's also a larger hall, so if our numbers do increase, we can go from the 4 tables that we had for the lessons and increase the number of tables that we have. So moving on, we wanted to get people into the club straight away, and we challenged the students to progress quite quickly. So after just 8 classes, we invited them to come to our club night as guests to play some Chicago alongside the club duplicate. And 12 of the students came on the first night we offered that. And we had, I think, 3 or 4 tutors facilitating at each table, but we got them to our Monday night session, which is in the town hall in the centre of town. And there were a lot of familiar faces there because they'd met some of the tutors already. It's coming up to Christmas, so we asked them as guests to our club Christmas social. And we had some drinks and snacks, mince pies, usual sort of Christmas thing, with some Chicago bridge. And all the students came. And each student then played with an experienced club member, so they weren't left floundering. And it was a very relaxed evening. And there was a bit of nervousness on the part of the students, but a club membership tried really hard to make them feel at home. Didn't worry too much if there was a revoke or lead out of turn, anything like that. Let's just have a bit of a fun evening. And that was really successful. So early in January this year, we started getting them in for a gentle duplicate charged for, and we run this in parallel with our main game. So we've currently got 4 or 5 tables in our club night game, and 2, 3 or 4 tables of gentle duplicate running alongside with a level of facilitation. But we've stepped that back, and now there may only be 1 person tutoring, and if the inexperienced players find that they're struggling, they can put their hand up and someone will just come and give them a bit of guidance. But we've got them into our club structure as soon as we possibly could. And that worked very successfully. So we invited all the students to join the club this January, talked to them about the benefits of joining the EBU, and we were really gratified. All the students joined us immediately, which increased our membership by over 40%. And we give them individual support when it's requested. It could be face-to-face. They might just come to one of the tutors at the start of a session, say, can you just explain Stamen to me again? Or might get a phone call. A favourite thing is they find a hand and send it to us. How should we bid this? And they're never straightforward. So that's always a bit of a challenge. We do that on the phone or by email. And we've also introduced them to bridge-based online options for them to practice, set up tables, and to play the free daily ACOL tourneys. And quite a number of them do that. I play them as well, and it's a bit embarrassing when they get a better percentage than me, but fortunately it hasn't happened too often yet. But it's quite gratifying to see steadily their percentages improving in the ACOL tourneys. We were advised at the start we would probably have to run some gentle duplicate sessions. So after the classes completed and there was high demand, we run a facilitated gentle duplicate afternoon. Same venue, same time as the lessons, and we've maintained our gentle duplicate on our club nights. So the uptake's been really good. We've had a further 8 new joiners. So our club membership's gone from 33 on the 1st of January to 55 at the moment. And a lot of those new joiners have got limited experience. They haven't done our class, but we've helped them integrate. And we've got about 6 more people who've expressed an interest. So we're aiming over the next few months to get the more confident gentle duplicate players across into the main club game. At the moment, we're running 2 sessions in tandem, but we will gently filter them across. And Jonathan has done us an addition to EBU score whereby you can have what are called appendix tables. So you can actually run your club duplicate with some tables not playing all of the boards. So if you've got a 24 board movement, you could have 2 or 3 of those tables playing maybe just 16 or even 12 boards at a slower pace, but actually being scored within the club session. The setup for that's slightly complex, but Jonathan set it up. He sent me some great instructions. I've tested it and it works. So we're thinking that that'll be our next stage. And we might integrate some further formal teaching in our gentle duplicate afternoons, and maybe target some younger cohorts, maybe locally via our local colleges. But that's for the future. At the moment, we're trying to consolidate with the new members that we've got and get them really up to speed to join us on club nights. So, to summarise, recipe for success: got to be friendly, enthusiastic, and very patient. And getting club members on board was great from the start. It was really positive for both the students and the members. And I can't stress enough how important that was for us. It's also the increased numbers. We increased the atmosphere, improved the atmosphere in the club. It's now a friendlier, happier place to be with more people in. And everyone's been really helpful towards the students. Professional standard, timely admin, I think, is really important. If someone calls you and you can't speak to them, or sends an email and you can't deal with it straight away, acknowledge it immediately and say, I'll get back to you within a couple of days. Make sure that you've communicated really, really well. And memory. I didn't quite realise what an issue this was going to be. How repetitive you have to be and patient with students that with an older cohort that do find it difficult to remember. We also asked for positive and negative feedback on a very frequent basis every week. And as was the first time we'd run any classes, we were very keen to get feedback, what had gone well, what was going well for the students, and actually act on it immediately. If someone brought something to our attention, we tried to deal with it straight away. You can't please all of the people all of the time, of course, but some people wanted extra tuition, extra support at the table. Some people wanted a hands-off approach and wanted to think things out for themselves. So we tried to tailor that within the class to not treat everyone exactly the same, try and understand what individual students' needs were. And final slide is getting the students into our club environment and duplicate as soon as we possibly could. And we set the clear aim of developing each student into a competent club level player within 12 months. And we're certainly on track to do that. It'll be October before the 12 months is up. But there's a number of players playing in the gentle duplicate who I feel we could move across to our standard 24-27 board club session. And we try to keep the class moving forwards. So, you know, each week, right, we're going to do something new. We're moving on. We're trying to get things better for you. And we try to be really flexible. This was new experience for everybody. We didn't have any direct experience to fall back on. So we started off going maybe down one route, and if that wasn't working well, we'd change it straight away. And I think the very, very top priority is the bottom line on this slide. Keep your sense of humour and make sure it's fun for everyone. And that's certainly worked for us. Thank you, Jonathan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve. I think that's brilliant what you've achieved, as you say, in less than a year to grow your membership that much and get so many new people playing. So that's brilliant. Do we have any questions for Steve at this point, or otherwise we'll do the other presentations and then come back to questions at the end?
Could I ask a question, please?
Of course.
My name's Mike Egan-Botherman from the Eden Club at Carlisle. On your pre-joining chat session, did you filter out people who you considered weren't really into club playing as opposed to social playing?
Yeah, it was a little difficult to do that. I mean, the people who phoned me were a mixed bag. There were people who'd been to classes previously and failed. There were people who played sort of socially at a golf club, but at a very, very basic level. And there were people who'd never sat down at a card table before. But I set out our stall that we were aiming to recruit players for the club. That was our aim. You know, I was very open about that. This is why we're doing it. We want to get extra members. And also, that we would expect people to follow the course for 30 weeks. That was, you weren't going to learn to play in 6 weeks. That it was a long-term commitment. And I think everyone's joined the club. I'm not convinced all of them will become club standard players. I think some of them will be quite happy playing gentle duplicate that we do at the moment. But yeah, I just tried to have a very open discussion with them and find out what their expectations were. And they all had the chance to come to a free taster session. We ran a lesson, which was module 1, lesson 1, and played some cards. So they had a clear idea of where we were heading.
And a final question, if I may, please, Chair. How did you handle non-attendances during your 30-week period due to things like illness and especially holidays?
Right.
How did you catch up?
Right. I mean, I kept a register of everyone as attendance. I just did an Excel spreadsheet and kept track of everyone who came. The students were really good if they weren't going to be able to make a week because they were away on holiday. We had someone who actually missed all of module 2. So that was 10 weeks. And all of those people, I tried to take a personal interest and did a bit of personal tuition. So I did a FaceTime call or got them to come early to the class and just went through the points in the lesson. The Bridge Play program is all online. So the videos are all accessible to the students. So anything that they've missed, that they can watch that. All the hands have a commentary, so they can look at the hands and go through the commentaries, do the quiz, read the summary sheets. So there are a lot of resources available to them. But to answer your question, I took a personal interest and tried to bring them up to speed on a one-to-one basis of anything that they'd missed.
Thank you for your answers and congratulations on your dedication of you and your team.
Thanks, Mike.
Joe, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, well, let's just have Teresa, and then Jim Steele's been waiting, and then we'll move on to the next presentation. So Teresa first.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
MC, brilliant. I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea involving other people than just having one tutor. I'm just wondering, how did that work when you had sort of 3 or 4 people as with the tutor? Did it not get a bit confusing who was giving advice, who was giving instructions, or were the other volunteers just there to help in the play?
They were there to facilitate the play. So in the classroom, we'd start, we'd run the video about a half hour, and everyone would chip into that. I mean, the tutors who came from the club and the students would ask questions. They would raise points themselves. And we often stopped the video and went off at a bit of a tangent and came back. Then within the classroom itself, myself and Mick, our chair, we organised the seating, the pairings, and I designated which tutors were going to either sit in to make the numbers. Sometimes they had to sit in if we had, if we had 11 students turned up, then obviously someone would have to sit in to make up a table. And briefed all the tutors beforehand, but they weren't doing, let's say, the formal part of the teaching. They were there to say, yeah, well, I think you should leave the King of Clubs or whatever, and challenge them as time went on, challenge them, the students, more rather than tell them the answer. There's no point telling them the answer. It's going to ask them more questions. Yeah. And people had different levels of skill at that. And occasionally I would cringe a little bit at what one of the tutors would say. And we'd just done a lesson on week 2s. And there's someone in our club who doesn't like week 2s and plays strong 2s. And he said, well, I don't really agree with this. And you're going, oh, yeah, but that's what we're trying to teach them. Okay. But it was all good humour. Fortunately, we had no level of conflict or issues with anyone who came to help. They were all volunteers. But basically, they were sitting in and giving over-the-shoulder advice, shall we say, rather than the formal teaching. And another thing which I didn't mention in the presentation was I designated the tables and the pairings, and I tried to move everyone around so people didn't sit with and against the same players all the time, just to mix up the table seating. We did have a married couple and they wanted to play together, so obviously they played together. But other than that, I designated basically on the basis of what we've done the previous week, let's do something different this week. And the tutors rolled around and I tried to give them, there was an element of differentiation. So I did put the stronger students on one table most of the time, but I would move them around between the sort of the levels. So there was a level of, upper, middle and lower, and also the tutors tried to match them. If we had a fairly nervous student, we'd try and match a very empathetic tutor with them. And that was just knowing, I learned that over the weeks, who was a good pairing and who wasn't.
Okay.
Excellent, thanks. Jim.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Steve. I was very impressed with that presentation of what you've done. A lot of good ideas there. Thank you very much. I think Teresa's asked pretty much the question I was going to ask, but I'll ask it a different way. Did you have any process for getting all your tutors onto the same page, sort of get them together to give them a bit of teaching for teachers?
No, I mean, I'm not a qualified bridge teacher. I used to be a dentist, and I've taught a lot of postgraduate dentistry. And Mick, our other teacher, was a maths teacher. So between us, we've got a lot of teaching experience, which obviously the tutors didn't have. I sent them all, the tutors for each session, a pre-session email as to what the subject was going to be, linked to it, the prepared hands. So before the lesson, they got everything that the students got after the lesson. And then I got them all to arrive 15 minutes before the start. And we'd have what we call a huddle, I guess. Right, today we're doing week 2. This is the thrust of the lesson. This is what we're going to do. But it would have been a good idea, actually, maybe to get all the tutors together and do a class for them first. So maybe going forwards, that's something we could do. But I tended to do it on a small group basis and by email to the tutors that were doing that specific class that week.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Right, so so thank you very much, Steve, and we will move on to David Dunford, who is going to speak to us about Nottingham Bridge Club.
I'll share my slides, which are really not that wonderful compared with what we've just seen. I'll apologise for that.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Not yet. Yeah, no. Nothing's come up. Nothing's come up so far.
I've clicked on the share button.
Share, and then you should just need to specify screen or the whole screen or the program.
Ah, right. I see. Oh, that's what I didn't do. And then share. There we are. Right. Is that working now?
Yeah, we've got it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think following on from Steve, there's similarities and differences. I mean, one of the differences is that we are a large club. We're fortunate enough to have our own premises, and we've got a long-standing established beginners course which lasts an academic year. But before COVID, we'd been thinking for some time about how best to introduce our beginners from classes into regular club drives, and had a workshop where we tried to establish what was it that made it difficult for beginners. I'll come on to that in a moment, but we decided certainly part of it was that we needed some form of intermediate drive, but then along came COVID, and we still went ahead, mainly with the people who just finished their course as beginners. And we started on BBO. We let anybody who wanted to play, but the rule was everybody had to play a basic version of ACOL, in effect what the beginners had been taught. And like you've just been told, we kept it down to just 14 boards. Like everybody else, we called it our gentle ACOL drive. Once we could then play face-to-face, we were able to do much more, and we turned it into a form of supervised play. They play random hands, and we do expect the laws of bridge, so things like revokes and leads out of turn are dealt with in the normal way. But they can refer to their crib sheets, and there are people that they can call on for advice, and we allow rollback of bids and play as well if that helps their learning at the table. And the success of the drive is basically down to the enthusiasm and dedication of the team that run it. They're not bridge experts, perhaps 5 years after their own classes at most, but that seems to give them an empathy with the beginners coming out of their lessons. And for the bulk of the people that we get from their lessons, they've covered the same material, so they're familiar with what a beginner would expect to be able to do. We're fortunate we've usually got about 5 or 6 people from the team at each session, and they of course play for free. Typically we'd have a couple of those people not playing but wandering around the room, free to respond to requests for help or giving help where they feel is needed, and they see something happening at a table. The others will be partnering people, beginners without partners, or sometimes splitting up a pair to give them a different experience of playing bridge at the table. And as well as playing with them, those people playing at the table will also be giving advice and picking up on what happens at the table and suggesting how things could be done differently. And we submit those sessions, I'm sure Johnson's interested, as a UMS Code 11. Because as well as our own beginners, we have people who've learned elsewhere. Sometimes they actually bring along their own mentor who's been encouraging them. If they don't feel ready for a club drive, they find our environment a better one. We've got people who, as Steve was saying, I think returning to bridge after a lengthy absence, who want to get back up to speed because the game is quite different perhaps from what it was 10, 15 years ago. And we do get some people who just want a leisurely, friendly game of bridge. We're taking around 2.5 hours to play those 14 board. Well, although it's a very friendly drive, we're aware that beginners may find it a daunting step to take after their classes. Steve mentioned about people's memories. Well, I think I find that they remember everything. They just don't remember it in the right order. People, they've all got their crib sheet that they were given after their class, and you'll see them looking for what they respond to their partner by being on the back of it and looking at what they're supposed to do in defence. What do we do with them? Well, we've got to take particular care about welcoming these beginners when they finish their course. And to do that, we have a sort of a handover. The last few sessions on their course are in the form of a supervised play, and we try to get some of our helpers in our gentle alcohol drive to go along to join them there so they get to know them. And then when they move to our gentle alcohol drive, the teacher comes along to give that extra endorsement for the first few sessions so that there is a proper handover, as I say, to encourage them to feel that they're welcome. We feel that one of the main things they need is some reinforcement of what they've learnt. We don't assume that they know it all by any means. We give some input. We get the beginners in May, June each year. And over the next few weeks, we give them some input. What we call table etiquette, you probably call the laws, such things as counting their cards, leading face down and shuffling their cards before they replace them in the board. All the sorts of things that if they don't do when they go to a regular club drive, people are either going to tell them off or just feel very unhappy that they're not doing things right. But otherwise, for those first few weeks, they're just getting some ad hoc advice during the play. And we're always playing a Mitchell movement of those 7 2-board rounds. And at the beginning, those new beginners are playing East-West, so they don't have to fuss about with the boards or entering scores or anything like that. But by October, we're separately starting an improvers course. Now, we don't expect the beginners to join that for at least another year, but what we do is encourage them to join the opening topics. and they're chosen to provide that consolidation of what they were taught on their course. So there's usually something on suit play, no trump play, and leads. And we also have a session on transfers, although that's not necessarily to encourage them to play transfers themselves at this stage. So there's some feeling that that should wait until they've got a better understanding of what's going on. But other people there playing on a gentle ackle drive will be using transfers. So it is encouraged to help them understand what's going on at the table, even though they're not doing it themselves. And picking on from that, we, from time to time, that gentle ackle drive might start with a 10-minute teaching topic. And that could be on almost anything. We've had a reminder to make the opening lead face down if we've noticed that some people are being forgetful about that. There might be a board in the previous week that gives a good learning point, and that's dealt with. Or recently, there was just how to actually review the results on bridge webs, see what had happened at other tables, see what sort of contracts people were in. And some of these topics then can lead to a little card appearing on the table the following week, reminding them about perhaps it might have been the opening lead face down, so that we have that there. Then how do we get them out of that? Well, that's probably the most difficult thing, because they enjoy it so much. It's so friendly. They can go and make tea and coffee whenever they want, and the bar's open as well. So it's a very pleasant environment. And to a certain extent, we find that those ready to move on will be those who find the play to be slower than they wish. As I say, we're only doing 14 boards in those 2.5 hours. On the other hand, we accept that a few will find it so comfortable that they don't want to move on at all. And we have to find a way of making them feel welcome so that they continue to play with us. However, we are always looking out to encourage the rest to make that break. And for those who are going to make that break, we've even got a booklet so that we can give it to them to remind them of those table etiquette issues, which they're going to have to fit in with when they move to a regular drive. And also emphasising the need that the director is their friend. I mean, perhaps apart from the partner, the only friend they've got in the room when it comes down to it. And that's partly to ensure that more experienced players don't take advantage of them. I don't know what your experience is, but we certainly get feedback from various clubs that sometimes people are taking advantage of inexperienced players in a way that they don't of the more experienced ones. Hesitation, I know from conversations in various places, is always going to be a potential issue. The beginner doesn't realise they're hesitating, they're actually thinking about things. And we're certainly aware of beginners going to drives elsewhere where they've, in their view, been aggressively accused of hesitation and end up feeling they've been accused of cheating. So the booklet and other teaching tries to explain the situation, why it's happening, and always advises them to call the director. At our own drives, with one exception, we allow beginners to consult their crib sheets. However, by the time they move on to those drives, they are encouraged to treat them as a comfort blanket rather than make frequent use of them. And again, we're looking to ease them into the regular drives. As examples, we have had helpers who partner up with the beginner and go with them to a drive and get them settled in there, playing with them, if you like, defending them from the other players or introducing them and making them friendly, depending upon how you view your play at a club. And at the moment, we are moving a batch of people into our Thursday night regular drive. And we've had people go to a Thursday session, explain what's happening, ask for their cooperation. And what I particularly liked was one of the Thursday night regular players I overheard them saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to be there, but it's because I'm away, not because I don't want to help. I'm really pleased with what you're doing." So that was a good result. To summarise, though, it's all very much a work in progress. I think, as Steve was saying, part of the process is getting to know each player as an individual and working out what would be the best way to help them progress through to a regular club drive. But the essential part of it is the support that we've had, and that a large team who are quite dedicated to making it all work. That's me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. It was very useful to hear what's going on and the success that you've had there. So I am conscious of time, so I think we should move on to the third case study, which is Alan Stanfield, who's going to talk about Gloucester Bridge Club. So let's move on to that, and then at the end we can have any questions. So let me just share Alan's slides for him.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Oh,
That's great. Thank you. Next slide, please.
sorry, I'm just on mute.
Okay, so ours is a bit of a journey of evolution. We started in 2022. Our situation at that time was a club that was a small club, 3 to 5 tables, 24 to 27 boards, good experienced players. But that small club was really not sustainable. We needed to grow the club. So we talked about running a second session to attract existing players from our current Thursday night sessions, players from another local club, players from local U3As who weren't currently playing duplicate, etc. And some of those players at other clubs or U3As had relatively recently had beginners lessons. We had 3 experienced club players who were willing to help run the second session. Next slide, thanks, Jonathan. So we started with 4 or 5 tables, playing 22, 24 boards on Tuesday afternoons. The experienced club players were providing at-shoulder support, just on request. Somebody would stick up their hand and an experienced player would wander over. The results were being uploaded to the club website and to EBU, but initially not as pay-to-play code 10. Some of the experienced players came from our Thursday night session. That had a mixed blessing. Some of them were too experienced and wanted to show off their portfolio of conventions, which was quite distracting for and daunting for some of the less experienced players. And it meant that the experienced players were getting good results compared to the less experienced players, which was again a bit of an off-put for the less experienced ones. We had a good mix of regular partnerships and singles. Next slide. We evolved that by running a Teams session so that they got exposure to Teams Bridge and also some sessions as handicap pairs. We gave them a write-up on how to interpret the website results on BridgeWebs. We put up a WhatsApp group to help players find partners. Some of the more experienced players dropped out. They realised they prefer just to play really serious bridge on Thursday nights. And we were left with a mix of players who wanted significant levels of support, while others just wanted to play. Some were dependent on crib sheets, as was mentioned earlier. So what we did was we split the room into 2 zones. The red zone for those that didn't want assistance, and the green zone for those that wanted assistance on request. And players were free to choose each week which zone they sat in. We ran it as 2 separate sections, with the red section results going up as pay-to-play code 10. And the results were merged on the club website. And at that point, we were getting 5 to 7 tables playing about 18 to 21 boards. Next slide, thanks, Jonathan. Then we had a new set of beginners. We delivered the EBU or EBED fast track lessons, and we did them in the same room and at the same time as the gentle duplicate was going on, which meant that the beginners were able to see real people playing real bridge further up the room and at suitable times during the lessons we just took the opportunity to wander up and stand behind some of the folks playing their gentle duplicate, and it let them meet the individuals. The feedback we got was it felt like you've already joined a proper club. We used some of the real bridge dropped card exercises, and those worked really well for the beginners. And towards the end of the fast track lessons, the beginners migrated to the green zone of the club sessions. There were still some beginners and some Tuesday afternoon club players who were lacking confidence and always put their hand up for help, always asked, what should I bid now? So just to try and improve resilience, we introduced ration cards into the green zone. So each player got three ration cards, and so they were able to ask for help 3 times. So they had to choose when they asked for help. Next one, John. So what's the current state? We've dispensed with the ration cards. The red and green zones have been merged. All the results are going to the website and EBU pay to play code 10. We're playing 7 to 8 tables, 18 to 21 boards. And to continue the learning, we're running 1 training session a month, where we're delivering a 10-minute, quarter of an hour teach-in, and then playing 16 boards on that topic. The boards are coming from the eBed hand banks, and we're providing a brief 1-pager on the topic, and those have gone down well. So reflecting on the lessons, thanks, Jonathan. We felt the real bridge dropped cards and the no fear bridge bidding quiz sheets were really helpful additions to the lessons. I think looking back, we could have put stronger emphasis on doing the homework, and more encouragement and direction on using BBO and no fear bridge outside the lessons. Looking at the sequence of the lessons that we had through fast track, we felt that the sequence might not be what we run with in future. For example, it leaves defence until lesson 9. We thought getting cards in people's hands and playing and defending were important to do early. There were some standard club topics that get left uncovered in fast track. They're described as signposts to the future. We suggest you consolidate those skills at a bridge club. And these were things like Stayman and transfers and week 2s, week 3s, which are essentially what's being played in club play. The way we charged for the beginners, we just charged them for the purchase of the fast track book and charged table money at each session, rather than getting an upfront payment. And I think we'd change that in the future. And also, if folks choose to drop out of the courses for whatever reason, we think we would offer to buy back the books up to a certain point through their learning. If they've decided after 2 or 3 weeks it's not really for them, then we'll buy the books back and reuse them on future lessons. And final slide, thanks, Jonathan. So reflecting more widely, it's made a huge difference to the club. We were a 4 or 5 table club. We're now a 4 or 5 tables plus 8 tables, which is brilliant. The sessions are full of laughter and everyone enjoying themselves. Some of the Tuesday players have now joined the committee. There have been some dropouts, and there have been some new players who've come to us by word of mouth, or they've just walked in, they've seen the website and walked in. We're still a bit vulnerable that our TD scorer is doing both the Tuesday and the Thursday sessions. So I guess in conclusion, we've kept reflecting on our approach and evolving it to meet the needs of the club players and the beginners. So now we just have club players. And And so we're ready to start evolving yet again, and we'll go around the cycle and relearn. That's me. Thank you.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. I mean, that's brilliant to hear that you've managed to start a whole new session and get 8 tables just in that period. So that's brilliant. Now Brian Lawrence has put his hand up. So Brian, do you have a question?
Yes, there was mention of the fast track training material. What is that? Where do you access it?
That's eBed course material. They do a beginner's 1-year course, they do a second year course, and they do a 12-week fast track course. And that's the material we've used in our lessons.
Thank you.
There's some details on the eBed website, and the books are available through the Bridge Warehouse EBU.
Excellent. Do we have other questions?
I have a comment, just to say all three are wonderful examples, and that two things that really strike me are the fact that being a small club is no obstacle necessarily to achieving this. I think that's a huge takeaway from this, and the appendix tables. Is there some guide to that available that I could distribute in Gloucestershire?
I can. Let's take that offline, Ian, and I can help produce something.
Okay.
I will make a note.
I have a question. Simon Aiken from Lancaster Bridge Club. I have 2 questions, really. You mentioned Northallerton Bridge Club, you mentioned video courses. Is that available from the eBed website?
No, it's from the Yorkshire County Bridge Association.
Right.
And I think you find that if you wanted to use their materials, they would probably charge you very little to do so.
Right. Okay. And did you find them useful?
Steve, you're on mute.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. We didn't quite agree with everything in a 30-lesson program, and I did actually rewrite, I think, 3 of the lessons myself to tie in with what we wanted to teach. But overall, fantastic. And the videos just go through sort of basic bidding sequences, card play. But the backup materials are great. Someone mentioned homework, which I don't think I really mentioned in my presentation. And there were quizzes with every lesson that the students could do at home. And if they're struggling with that, we could pick it up the next week, or they could send me an email. And massive resources with each of the videos. So okay. Highly recommend it.
Thank you. And my other question to everybody who's presented, thank you very much for your insights, is I just really wanted to get some idea from you about what you thought were the right sort of timescales. How long for lessons? How long for gentle bridge? How long before they become a competent club player, or well, not necessarily a competent club player, but a regular club player?
I would say a maximum of 2.5 hours for a session. That's what we ran on, and that includes a coffee break. So time is actually quite tight in that if you're doing a lesson and prepared hands and facilitating it. But certainly at the start, when everyone came to the club, halfway through, everyone said, I'm exhausted. My brain can't cope. And they're now doing a 3-hour session on a club night, but they're playing probably 16 boards in that time. But that's after like 9 months. So I would say 2.5 hours. I mean, just an aside, really, I think it's just really interesting how we've done 3 presentations, but they've all had a very similar theme, that it's key to get as many people involved as possible, get your membership on board. And I think everyone also said how the spirit and the ethos and the atmosphere in the club has improved as a result of it. So it's been a very positive exercise for our club, not just the recruitment of numbers and the extra finance that we've got in. It's just more fun doing it.
So you're sort of saying by 9 months, you're expecting them to be doing sort of 16 boards with gentle bridge with some support along the way.
Yeah, minimal support now, I would say.
Is that the same in Nottingham?
Well, as I said, they do an academic year for their beginners course. And I think after a year of the gentle alcohol, we're trying to move them on. Some of them have already moved on and others are ready to move on. I think there was mention about how long they can cope with. Some people straight from a beginner's course find 2 hours is a long time.
Yeah.
So we're now running about 2.5 hours. And with the slow play, what we've actually got is packs of cards sitting on the tables. So the people who finished quickly can just deal their hands out and play a bit of social bridge while they're waiting for the others to catch up. And they're, of course, the ones that we're targeting to move on because they're ready for it, as opposed to others who are struggling on.
Right. So you're sort of saying they're ready to be moved on after a year, after 18 months?
Well, yeah, 18 months to 2 years, I would say.
Right.
I mean, everybody's different. And
yes, of course.
Ours don't always necessarily come straight from the course. And of course, some of the people, in fact, our teacher is slow to the table, but he's going to be running some mini bridge sessions this year to start before his regular course starts, because he's now finding that there are people who are just not used to holding cards in their hand anymore.
Yeah.
And yet we've got our lessons were the fast track 12 lessons, and they're now playing at club pace with reasonable skill and getting reasonable results.
That's very good. What we find is that we've got quite a few people at our gentle alcohol sessions who have been to a fast track course and are completely confused about what they're doing. It's all in there, but they just bring out the wrong bit at the wrong time. And yeah, it no doubt depends on how you deliver it, but we have not found the fast track to be the solution for everything at all.
Yeah, and as I said in my bits, it leaves a whole pile of standard club techniques left dangling and excluded from that fast track course.
Yeah, the bridge play course includes minimal conventions. It covers Stayham, it covers Blackwood, week 2s, week 3s, overcalling, week jump overcall in the 30 weeks. So, and I think just a final comment really is our students, they watch the video, they do the self-directed learning at home, they listen to what the tutors have told them, but they actually find it quite difficult translating that when they've got the cards in front of them. And they know the theory, they know what they should do, but they get a rabbit in the headlights with the cards in front of them and can't quite remember at the time what they want to do. But it's interesting watching them, as the months have gone by, all of them are getting steadily better. It'd be bad news if they weren't, of course.
Yes, I have a standard thing when somebody's asking, what shall I bid now? I usually say, well, what choices have you got? And then I say, which one do you always forget? Oh, and they say, oh, it's the double, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll forget that as well.
Excellent. Tim has been waiting patiently with his hand up, so let's go to Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to mention a couple of things. So at Winchester Bridge Club, we've introduced a gentle duplicate, much along the lines of our speakers. I think a couple of somewhat distinctive things, some of which are slightly controversial within our club, but we decided that to abandon kind of the idea that our gentle duplicate session would be transitional as such. I mean, it is transitional in that people have moved on from that to our Tuesday and Thursday nights, which are our standard club nights, but we very much bill it as a thing in itself. And we don't give any assistance in the gentle duplicate session. It's 15 boards with a break. And we just say to people, come and enjoy it. And you can come forever if you want to gentle duplicate. We're not going to put any pressure on you to move on. Equally, we encourage people, if they do want to move on to something where they play a few more boards at a slightly higher standard, they can go to one of the other sessions. But that's been our approach. It's working at the moment. We get 4 to 6 tables a week. Also, just to sort of answer the question about when are people ready to play in the gentle duplicate, well, we welcome people as soon as they can cope with the mechanics of bridge if they want to play with us. So they emerge from our bridge teachers courses, and they're immediately welcome to join us at gentle duplicate. That that works for us. We allow, I should have said, we allow consultation of notes, provided there's no consultation between partners, and that seems to work fine as well. We have actually also had migration from our main sessions into the gentle duplicate, and I think it's quite healthy that happens. Partly that's because we're a low standard club, and frankly, it's a more suitable group for some of them. But also we've had people, for example, some people suffering a bit with old age type ailments, who find the fewer boards and the slower pace is actually quite nice for them, and we like that organic approach. So that was just to mention what works for us. Obviously, what works for other people may be different, but we're having quite a lot of success with that approach.
So success brings its own problems. I mean, our gentle alcohol can get 10 tables of an evening, and we're at the stage now where we're expecting our teacher who teaches he's got 2 groups he's been teaching, and they're about to move over to our gentle alcohol. So we actually need the space. So we're desperately encouraging people to move on.
Excellent. Well, that's always a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm conscious of time, but we can certainly carry on while people have questions. Nick Willis, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's more of a comment what we're doing. It's Nick Willis here from Winscombe in North Somerset. One of the things that we've done to try and move, we run a Tuesday afternoon social bridge session, which you guys are calling Gentle Bridge, and it's people that come off of our course move into that, and most of them tend to stay on the Tuesday afternoon. They really enjoy the social side of it, and you know the pace of play suits a lot of the players, and it's similar to what the previous guy said, is that some of the players are quite elderly. It's an afternoon out for them even, so we're quite happy to run that. But what we have done to try and get people to move across to our serious Friday bridge, every month, some of our more experienced and perhaps possibly intimidating players disappear and play in their county league matches. And we were finding that on that Friday night, we were struggling to get enough people to play to do 3 or 4 tables. So what we've done is we've introduced a friendly handicap session on that night. So all the serious players disappear off to their county match. We have a number of experienced players that are still playing on, want to play on the Friday night, and we're introducing some of the people from the Tuesday evening bridge and applying a handicap at the end of the evening. So all the scores will go to the EBU, unhandicapped, but then I'll, as secretary, produce the handicapped result. And of course, with your handicaps, those players that are less experienced are moving up and getting a better result than they would do if we didn't apply the handicaps. And we're finding that's being really, really successful. And people are now moving from that handicap night and are starting to dip a toe into the serious club nights. Perhaps that's something some of the clubs could think about, particularly if you've got players that disappear into county league matches or something like that. We found that's been very, very useful.
The other thing you can do is run a Swiss teas event.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, that's certainly a good point. And doing handicapping based on NGS is very straightforward to do in EBU score. So that's, I'll include a link for that when we send out the links after the seminar, a link on how to produce handicapped results if people want to do that.
We had our annual individual competition on Sunday. And of course, to make an individual work well, it's good if everybody plays a nice, simple system. And that encouraged several people to come from our gentle alcohol and join in, and they all had a wonderful time.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's been a very good session. I'd like to thank all our speakers and also thank everyone who's asked questions and to everyone for coming along. The recording of this will be made available. So if you're for those who weren't able to attend, if anyone asks you, there will be a recording available. So any final questions, or otherwise, thank you all, and there will be more seminars announced soon.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.